have been looking at this document for some time, but Ryan is here, of course, and he had sent what we thought was some final version or close to it today. But once we looked at it, there's a few things in there that has to be reviewed and made better. So we're going to defer the approval, and I think he has some additional information.
Sure, and you know, just like Mr. Duffy indicated, I think all parties are working hard to get the agreement right and get it perfect, and we targeted this date to be in front of you. We're asking for final approval, and we just didn't quite get there. And so we're still polishing on it. I imagine we'll probably get it hammered out as early as tomorrow, but we aren't there tonight. So in that situation, nothing's on fire. We're never in such a big hurry that we want to potentially make a mistake. So it was all right with Mr. Duffy if we postponed a little while. Mr. Kugel's also, we exchanged some emails today. It seemed like it was just a more comfortable path forward to make sure we get it right at a comfortable pace and then come back and forward with a fully baked, 100% executable document. Economic terms are all the same, but we're just hammering out the contractual language. We're also in the process of applying for a conditional use building permit. We're going to have our public P&Z hearing on the 4th. So do have, and some more definitive now, because we have submitted into Georgia Power's RFP successfully a couple weeks ago, April 20th. So better information now, more definitive. It's in front of Georgia Power. They're reviewing it. They will eliminate about roughly 80% of the field May 17th, and they'll announce who's made this competitive tier. And all those in the competitive tier will be required to put a fairly substantial performance bond. So that's why we're working towards get our certainty before bid goes in, and then if we're not 100% there in the MOU, we have a little bit of time to kind of get things hammered out. But same boat with the conditional use permit for the build. So while we always wish things go as fast as possible, we feel pretty good about where we are. Work through the designs on something like this. We pursue as many opportunities as possible. So until we were able to develop the project. So this is in front of Georgia Power. It's also in front of the EMCs and any number of energy buyers. And we hope, I think it's just thick paper.
This one is big.
Pretty big. So this design is what's in front of Georgia Power. We're working on some other designs that we're going to put in front of the EMCs, but this would fall within the constraints provided by the MOU and also the constraints provided by our lease agreement with Clyde Smith, the landowner in Macon County. So this request for approval ended up more of an update to the county, and we're happy to provide
the increase in
project
cost.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look down here at the site plan, this ended up. This is I'll just step back and just say, this site, things started aligning and it worked out very, very efficiently. And so we were able to fit 135 megawatts onto this project site and into this transmission line here. And so the net result of the project is we're now looking at a roughly $148 million project that will spill off some $10.8 million in tax revenue.
So the original one was 88.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is an additional $60 million
Oh, this is Beltline here.
project that we're looking at.
I'm passing out loud that page.
So
They may not understand the picture.
no, same way. So the way that all played out is this.
Way off.
So this line here, we do a preliminary power analysis that we put in there, the injection analysis, and then we go to a more substantial power flow analysis. Typically, power flow analysis tells you that you can do less than you hope. In this case, we got into it, and in a rare occurrence, it told us we could do more than we hoped. We had gotten a little bit wrong in the first part, and so we realized that we could put more. And then we went back to the land, and the line itself would hold about 140 megawatts. And we initially thought the land was only gonna hold about, at most 100. And then design-wise, things started falling in place. We were able to use this little tail over here. And we ended up being about 5 megawatts shy of the capacity of the line, which is pretty much where you want to be. So we were thrilled, the landowners thrilled. The initial feedback from the county is that 6 million extra is good. So, and we designed our agreement so that it could accommodate both the lease agreement with Clyde and the MOU with the county to accommodate that variability.
We still got that blind where they can get to the river and everything.
Yes, sir. Actually, I have some diagrams on that. I also blew up.
Otherwise, I'm gonna be getting a lot of.
They're all intact, what we originally discussed, and I had some blown up and I misplaced them. But in any event, they're codified in the lease itself, and they're baked into our design. The problem here is you just can't see. This little separation here is really like, 100-foot setback, but you just can't, depth perception. I printed out some additional copies just for this purpose, and now I can't find them. I apologize for the gap. When I'm back in front of you next time, I will have, I brought out some 11 by 17s that showed the vegetative buffers, and for whatever reason, can't lay my hands on them right now, so I apologize for not coming as prepared as I'd like to have been. But rest assured that the vegetative buffers that we've agreed to contractually with Clyde and also, verbal testimony to the commission are still in the plan.
What constitutes all the buffers? What type of vegetation?
So there's a varietal called Ebiengi ilianus, and then there's a varietal of like Leland cypress is basically what it is. But we're talking about an evergreen that grows wide, maybe like 10 or 12 feet tall, as opposed to a loblolly pine that's going to go 100 feet up. And so he's a timber farmer. And so we have to, by virtue, if we're not leasing that land, we assume him or his neighbor is planting pines. So we have to give at least 150 feet for shading between where we build our array and where we lease, or the property boundary. So in that setback that we naturally have to observe to protect against shading, we're happy to put in ingress and egress roads, vegetative buffers. And so typically what we do is we use, it's very similar to a Leland cypress, so I'll use Leland cypress because it's easier to pronounce. And it's every 6 feet. When they grow to full maturity, they're 12 feet tall and roughly 6 feet wide. So if you plant them every 6 feet, they're overlapping. When it's really mission critical, let's say, and in this case, there's not a lot of residential homes that we felt would be difficult to shield. In some cases, if a house is like up on a hill, there's not a whole lot I can do to put a vegetative buffer where he can't see that solar farm. We don't have that situation here. In any event, if it's super mission critical, we're happy to do a double buffer. Where we think the single is going to give you 100% opacity, we can do double. So one every 6 feet and then another staggered row every 6 feet as well, 3 feet on center. So you're effectively getting a double vegetative row. We put that in. It's on our lease territory. We work it into our operations and maintenance routine. And, effectively, you get a row of evergreens that we feel pretty comfortable will never grow to be problematically high. And typically grow, they're very robust and quick growing, so it's usually been kind of a win-win. Better than a fence that requires maintenance or something of that nature.
I've got a few houses say that he's clear cutting all the timber behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So how far behind those houses on Cutoff Road will you be back?
Can I approach and you point who we're at?
If I can read this map right, I think they're on Cutoff.
Okay.
So that would be, I assume it's going to be right in here, I guess.
That's right.
But that's Cutoff going that way, is that correct? There's some houses right in there.
So that's on the north side, and so the north side is the easiest for us to protect against because no shading in the north. So And we assume this kind of thing comes up in the planning and zoning hearing. You know, somebody with those homeowners will likely be at the meeting.
Right.
And I just got through this in Mitchell County last night. We come in with that map and a Sharpie pen, and we say, if there is a concern, let's demarcate exactly where the county and the landowner might like to see a buffer. Our solar array is 10 feet tall. So it's not hard. It makes at most a whisper. I think it's like 35 decibels. So if you're on that side of the room and there's nobody in here, you can hear it. But if people are talking, you wouldn't even be able to hear it. So relative to, dairy farms and, chicken houses and this kind of thing, we're pretty good neighbors. And if we put a vegetative buffer in where you can't even see it, and we typically anticipate putting a buffer in any time that you can see it from somebody's property. So if you're in a house and you didn't look out a window, we want to put a buffer. If you're on somebody's front porch, buffer. If you're off in the corner of somebody's lot, away from the home, we would probably think that that might be all right. So that's kind of how we base our initial analysis on what to expect. Now, sometimes we get into a county meeting and the landowner steps up and says, X, Y, Z, and it falls on, fertile ground with the commission, and then we do more than expected. Because the bottom line is we'll give the county exactly what everybody needs so that we're fitting comfortably into the community.
One other question, and I'll stop.
Yeah.
These cell towers, there's always been some question about health.
Yes, sir.
Have they done any discussion?
I'm thrilled that you asked that question because, typically, solar is an approved usage in the United States and in Georgia. So typically, when there's a concern, and Mr. Coop can probably speak to this more so than I, but the onus is on the plaintiff to substantiate the technology risk or the health risk. I personally am not a research scientist that can speak to it directly, but I can say that it comes up a lot. And I know that I myself and a lot of other people in public forums have spent a lot of time looking for that, that evidence. And I've yet to see it brought forth either by my own research or by anybody else's that truly links, solar to some sort of health problem. So much, in fact, but the practical example that I usually point to is that you see these solar farms on the rooftops of hospitals routinely across the United States. So if there was something that cold hard facts would point to, this also holds true for airports that are adopting them. So if reflectivity was a problem, Hartsfield wouldn't be installing solar. But the point being is that we take that very seriously, and if somebody wanted to bring forward something that was, non-biased, third parties, like a real piece of research, we'd love to consider it because, we're owning and operating the systems in these communities. We want to know if there's a problem, we're going to be exposed to it first. So we'd be interested in hearing it. But in general, we pass the buck to the plaintiff to support what that risk might be.
What's the impact that those solar farms have on the residential properties? Does it devalue their property?
So there's a lot of uniformity in the state of Georgia, where all properties have to be evaluated equally. So, county can't come in and say, hey, because you're next to the solar farm, we're going to assess your property at a lower value or what have you. One of the very nice points about this particular solar farm is it's located in an area of the world that really needs economic development. It's kind of in a relatively remote area of the county, and all things being equal, the residential areas in proximity to the solar farm are relatively few. I mean, there's strip mining in the area, so it hasn't been a prime area for residential growth. But there are some landowners and some families that have been here for generations. One of which is the Smiths, who we're contracting with. And they've done a good job of getting out there and answering questions. Clyde's called me 2 or 3 times. I know he's been talking to his neighbors. In fact, he's shown them the agreement in some cases where, vegetative buffers are written in, to a signed agreement. We never know until the public forum on the 4th. And we'll be down with our maps and ready to answer. I got documents on, the construction company and the engineering, and happy to stay and talk to anybody that's interested as long as they, as they're willing to talk, really. But we hope, given the proactive protective measures that we're taking down here and the relatively few people that we're having to protect against, that we won't have, we're prepared to do really whatever it takes to protect them against any impact that would be associated with the solar farm. And, our focus is especially on these county roads, of course, where you come in and out, the ingress and egress. Thankfully, less here than it could be, because a lot of our property boundary is just, raw forest. So we don't get as much traffic, but any traffic at all is a real concern. So if it suits the commission, we'll continue working with Ms. McDuffie. Gerald, we'll get this thing, Mr. Kugel, we'll get this thing exactly right and come back before you with the full blessing of the county authorities.
Again, what your deadline is for having the memorandum of understanding approved?
I'm a little bit on, full transparency, organizationally, I'm a little bit on borrowed time because we always anticipate winning, and we assume that they're going to send us an email. It's May 17th, saying you are now on the competitive tier. You have 48 hours to get this, to post your performance bond. The reality is not quite that cut and dry. If you come back and say, hey, yes, we're thrilled to accept, and we're mobilizing now. What are the wiring instructions? If everything's on board, we're going to be in good shape. And if I've gotten in front of you guys and there's no indication from the county that there's a problem, we're not going to. It's all part of the process. We have time. We're never in such a rush where we can't take time to get it right. We'd like to have it wrapped up at your earliest convenience, but we're not going to cause a scene because, and candidly, a lot of it's on our side. I could have been more proactive about reaching out to Mr. Kugel and Ms. McDuffie about any concerns they might have had. So we'd like to have it wrapped up by May 18th, which is when we'd be hitting send on the performance bond.
Yes, I was going to ask that, if we may have to do the approval on the 10th, which is our next work session.
Which I'll be out of town. I've got a grandchild coming from Texas on the 9th.
Sure.
You gotta be at
It's guaranteed on the 9th. It's gonna be guaranteed.
So work session on what day?
May 10th,
Next Wednesday?
yeah.
We can, well, if it's ready by then, we can vote, or the 18th is not too late, but we'll just have to kind of play that by ear, I guess, if you get it done. If Ben, you could participate.
I'll call him, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd have to advertise that if we're going to do it on the 10th, probably go into, well, we really don't have to go into a regular session. We can vote at the work session.
I will say that we would appreciate any way you can expedite it, but it goes a long way when the county commission has previously met, voted, and we have your county minutes where it says you approved the motion. It would be so.
I think more than anything else, it's not. I don't perceive any opposition unless something big comes up between now and then. It's more trying to. It's new to us.
Yep.
And we've got all kinds of questions.
And there's been some, strange circumstances as well. At one point in the document, we referenced the conservation use valuation assessment, the Cougar covenant. Well, a week ago today, the governor signed a new House bill that just barely adjusts that Cougar covenant, but it impacts solar.
Yeah.
So we had it in our agreement. We referenced because the House bill is being considered by, the elected officials, but it hadn't been made a law yet. Well, now it has. So, the agreement needed a little tweak to make it current with the existing state law. Well, that doesn't happen every time you negotiate a document. So there's been some things that take a little bit of time to back up and be right. But in any event, we've enjoyed our interaction with the county. Mr. Duffy's been great to work with, and we feel very confident that if we keep the momentum, we'll get to where we need to be. I mean, we're gambling on it. We got our application into the utility based on, the house of cards that we've been building along the way. So very much look forward to being back in front of you and having a finalized document and talking about, making the competitive tier.
When do they go before the zoning committee?
They have a public hearing on this Thursday.
More of the county manager question. In this agreement, the one we got, I understand there is a more recent one, but I just read through it. It's layman's reading, but it seems like I just had some questions. Maybe it's not even understanding what it says, and it's really attorney questions. And I feel okay if John's representing our interests, and then I think that somewhere we've been told Dan McRae is representing the Development Authority. Is that not? And so at some point, I'd like to see something from Dan McRae saying he's read the agreement and the Development Authority is covered. That's just another step of endorsement that there's nothing in here that's an issue.
So, it's a commission. Typically, the way that this unfolds, and we're happy to work any way that you guys come from. We anticipate we'd actually baked into that MOU agreement that on our dime we would be paying for the legal expense for the bond and title transaction to get the projects awarded. And we assume that you would be bringing in Dan McRae, and I think we capped it at $125,000. So we assume that you're going to spend serious money on getting the best counsel possible. For these MOUs, we try to keep it as cost efficient as possible. So typically, we're engaging with the county attorney on the MOU, get that in place, and then when the real heavy lifting occurs, that's when they bring in Dan McRae. I will say, any consideration that you guys give time and effort on Google, we typically receive a bill for that, and we would anticipate the same if it was Dan McRae. Only reason why we'd be a little bit hesitant if you brought in, the preeminent authority in the state of Georgia is that it could get a little bit pricey, and so we'd be sensitive to hoping that we could get to a point where the MOU is cost efficient as possible.
Well, and we went through at our last work session, we went through this thing pretty extensively, and like I said, just reading from the layman's terms and experience.
Sure.
And I think Mr. McDuffie made notes and has maybe addressed that, but just the things that just kind of jump out. Just one example. It says, which is probably not even going to happen, but it says in case the company quit paying the payments in lieu of taxes, that the tax commissioner could go about collecting under the normal procedures of Georgia law. Well, I'm not so sure that's possible since, the company is involved, the development authority is involved. I mean, if it was my property and I didn't pay my taxes, they'd try to get me to pay, and if I didn't, they'd sell it on the courthouse steps. Not sure that's what would happen.
Well, so in
In this case, or even legally could happen.
Well, so Regina, Ms. McDuffie called today, and we've talked through this with a point, and I think it's useful to remember that this pilot transaction only applies to the equipment, not to the land itself. So the property underneath it would be separate and distinct. The equipment, they would be holding, you guys would be holding the title to. Typically, contractually, anybody that we, I'll allow Mr. Kugel to speak to this, the event of default is always articulated so that everybody's fully aware, and I think that's just kind of a contractual thing. We certainly don't anticipate it being an issue or even want to talk about it, but we include it because it's a standard item within most of them. Yeah. So, to the extent that there was different path, or we're really an open, we expect when we send these documents out to get comments, questions, concerns. Typically, comments will come back, take a couple of days, and then we'll set up a meeting and we'll provide a response draft and work through each issue.
I would assume that the equipment certainly would be, if you didn't pay it, then the company, it'd be a direct line. The company would be, and we'd sell the equipment for, whoever wanted to buy much more. But,
it would
but
really,
the land, if the taxes wasn't paid on the land, then I suppose it goes to the property owner.
Yeah, sure.
And that'd have to be somewhere in the legal agreement with him, but.
So we have certainly, we work through event of default with the Clyde Smith agreement. So he's very, very aware of what happens in this remote case that we won't pay our bills. Now, I'll say this, when it comes to property taxes, we got this $148 million solar array on top of it. The ad valorem property taxes are relatively insignificant to the cost of the equipment. So, heck or high water, we're going to make sure we're paying the small bills so that if something doesn't, we don't lose our right to use the land. And there's a whole series of, if we for some reason mailed the payment and didn't get there, he has a certain amount of days to notify us of the default of the deficiency. We have a certain amount of days to cure. It goes back and forth. And if we don't do our job, then the solar facility mortgagee, i.e. the bank, has the right to step in, and they're certainly interested in protecting their investment. So,
Well, we just, I'll just highlight these things and pass them on to Ms. McDuffie, and, it may be fine, but there's just language that seems.
When Ms. McDuffie, when I was driving down here to do this, she called me with a couple questions, and they said, you know what, probably makes more sense to take your time and get these questions answered. And so we contemplated in our office just 30 minutes before we came into here that we would do a compare to some of her notes versus what we're looking at now and make sure everybody's on the same page. And the way we left it as we were walking in is, whenever your earliest convenience is, we're happy to hop on the call and work through point by point. But
Anybody else have any comments? Thank you very much for being here. Discussion, thank you very much.
Is this going to be the new dollars we're looking at? Yeah.
Okay, next item is the approval of the Chase Solar abatement schedule.
Okay, and this project, this is the Urban Grid Solar Project. I think we've had some confusion on Chase and Urban Grid and Beltline, so this is the Urban Grid Solar Project. And of course, we did go through the schedules, and what we're looking at right now is trying to just finalize the abatement schedule. We do have the MOU that's being formulated for this project as well, which we hope will be similar to the other one in terms and clauses, so we won't have to go through so much review of all of everything with it. I think when I wasn't here at that meeting, there was some questions about the abatement schedule. So what I did was go back and look at the abatement schedules and try and make them more answer some of the questions that were proposed at that meeting. The two schedules that you have, I modified them, and I think we went through them at the work session to talk about the real property tax and the other tax amounts that were shown on the previous schedules that we had put out. But these schedules, the difference between the two is the boxes over to the right have the different abatement schedules in them. The columns to the left are pretty much the same until you get up to those boxes. The first schedule is the one that, and I'll just go through some of the columns, looking at the current CLUBA taxes that are being generated. And most of this is kind of estimated over time. We looked at what the first year is in the current, And based on schedules that we reviewed before, there was like a 1% increase over the 30 years per year. And that's what these schedules are kind of based on. So that first column is the CUVA of what the real property tax is generating now, which is $110,000 over the course of 30 years. The second column basically shows what the real property tax of the county would be outside of CUVA. And the third column is the BOE real property tax outside of CUVA, which is estimated at a total of $10,540 right now of real property tax that will be generated outside of CUVA. And that equates down over the 30 years of $366,000. So in essence, what the real property taxes generated for this project over the 30-year period would change approximately $250,000 out from the CUVA amount to the real property total amount. And then I just put the city taxes in there just because Gerald, I think, had asked a question or had a question about that. There's a small portion of this project that's in the city of Oglethorpe versus all of it being in the counties like the other project is. And that constitutes that, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sixth column is just a total amount of real property tax that all entities would look at over that 30-year period. Then we get into the assessed value of the equipment and the actual property taxes before the abatement, and that's been the same throughout all of the presentations of the project. And then this first box shows the 62% abatement over a 30-year period, which is what the company shows that the real property taxes that will be paid over that 30-year period is $4.1 million. And the total paid, which is that total column, is the 4.1 plus the 366,000 of real property tax, which would be a total tax amount of $4.5 million over the 30-year period. And then in the box, the abatements are shown for the first 15 years of 75% abatement, and then zero abatement the last 15 years. And this particular example would net a $4.7 million of property taxes due under the abatement schedule, with a total of $5.1 million over the 30-year period. Difference being about $500,000 of additional, well, $600,000 of additional taxes over the 30-year period.
Question? Comment?
So this is all going to run along the 26 corridor too.
Yeah, this is the one that's on 26. This is the Chase property.
A little concerned being right there on the major highway. But if you look at Taylor County on the 4-lane highway. But to me, it's not a pretty sight compared to growing cropland versus metal stuff stuck out there on all this land. So the other project is back in the woods, you know what I'm saying? And we're giving up something that may not be during my lifetime, but you know, and it may not make it, maybe more than 30 years that something comes along. I just concerned if something does come along during that period of time. We signed a contract for what, 30 years? I might get out of it. Be nice if it could be a reset, but I know there was some question about that.
Well, I don't know if they plan on any kind of a buffer. Of course, the ones they got out there now on the other side of the road.
They just have a fence.
But that land was nothing but just trash land, basically.
Too small to do anything much.
Yep.
my feeling is, I guess if we had, I probably would not be in favor of it if we had something pending that somebody was looking at that property or some other kind of development, but I'd say we don't have anything with the money coming in on the tax rolls. To me, it's worth it for 30 years, and then if they want to bulldoze it and build a Tanger outlet, when everything gets going, that'd be good.
What about if it ever came up that the 4-lane, they would 4-lane that road? I mean, how far is, I mean, is the right of way go set back enough? I assume it would enough for that.
I don't know, I guess that right of way is 60 foot or something.
No, it's an 80-foot right of way at least, and in some places it's probably 120.
Yeah, 120.
They got plenty of room
Yeah, because that side of the road would be, I mean, I wouldn't, on my side of the road, there's my building, there's several buildings.
You can move out there.
The other side of the road is nothing but land, what I'm saying, so the right of way would need to go that way, which means the offset would need to be further back.
Him and the domain would take over there.
Yeah, take out some solar panels.
Yeah.
And
They said it was more of my building.
with the pace, it will probably be 30 years before they 4-lane that road.
Probably so, if we ever,
Yeah, well, I think eventually they will.
we trying,
Yeah.
I'm getting everybody's ear all the time.
And of course, that's all in the future, pie in the sky. There was the original plan for that was to move that bypass, build another bridge and get it way on down so it wouldn't be an issue. So, if they did do that, but
So are we looking at we heard, I guess we hadn't heard back from Gerald on the 75, on this other 75%, where we stopped the abatement in 15 years.
I did ask, at the last meeting, we discussed, 75% for 15 years. I did go back to them and show them the same thing that we had voted on for Beltline, where it actually goes 16 years and gives the Development Authority $25,000 per year for 10 years. I asked them to look at that, and we're supposed to have an answer in the morning. So if you wanted, if you wanted to look at it that way instead of the straight 15 years like you're looking at, that would help the Development Authority and all. But if you don't, don't let that stand in the way of the project. But I did ask them to look at it because last time y'all said something about the Development Authority, so they're looking at both of them.
well, we can't, if we're waiting on that, we can't approve the schedule. They're gonna have it, they gotta have it here at the meeting when we look at it and approve the schedule.
Well, I mean, I don't know, we could possibly add it later as a modification to the schedule, but it would add it on top of what we have here. Which is what the Beltline proposal, it's not taken away from the taxes, it's basically an additional contribution that they make to the county, which I think is not, I don't think that's unreasonable.
But I thought it reduced.
Haven't they already turned in their bid, though, Gerald?
What's that, Jim?
They've already turned in their bid, haven't they?
They have, but just like this project, I think it's still in flux till May the 20th that you can change it some. And they indicated in talking today that they might even like that proposal better than this one. What I would suggest, and John have to tell me about the legal ramifications of it, but what I would suggest, if you possibly could, would be to go ahead and approve that 15-year that's before you tonight, with the idea that if they come back and offer to do the other one, then you could just modify it at the next meeting. At least you would be indicating that you are prepared to go ahead and give them one or the other.
But they're building this project, where they go into the highway, I mean, they gonna come off 26, they gonna come off Stagecoach.
Stagecoach, I feel sure.
Probably won't let them come on 26.
26,
Oh, man, that
I
DOT
think.
gonna let them go in and out off.
State won't let them do it.
And on 26, I'll call the DOT tomorrow and see if they perhaps have already acquired enough right-of-way. I heard you discussing the 4-lane. I'll see if they already have enough right-of-way out there for a 4-lane versus a 2-lane. I don't know how much they got compared to how much they'd have to have if you 4-lane.
What's the pleasure of the commission? On the tax abatement schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I would like for us to go ahead and accept the 75% abatement and make moderate changes, to the agreement based on what come out of their meeting tomorrow. At least we'll have something in place.
Motion by Mr. Melvin that we accept the 75% schedule and modify it based on any subsequent schedule. Is there a second? There is no second, the motion fails. So, do I hear a motion to table a vote, any vote on the abatement schedule until we finalize?
I vote for that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion offered by Mr. Felton to table the vote on this abatement schedule until it's finalized. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Honeybook. Any further discussion? I just had one question. If they're working on changing it, there's only, that's not an additional amount of money they're going to pay in lieu of taxes. It's going to come off of what we're getting. It'll go to the Development Authority instead of coming to the county, or it can't come out of what goes to Board of Education. It'll come out of what the county is getting. That's the whole, that's the other.
No, but I'm pretty sure this one is not done that way.
Well, theirs is figured into their total
Right.
project budget,
Yeah.
and it was part of it.
Right.
This one's not, so
Yeah.
if they change it, that's gonna mean we get less money, I think.
$250,000,
Yeah,
basically.
Unless they got, a little extra they won't throw in the pot, but that'd be good.
$250,000.
Might be.
When Beltline throwing theirs in,
Right, Beltline was throwing theirs in.
taking my taxes out of this.
They just put the whole thing in. That, if they
Right, it
didn't,
was the overall project cost, because they had a bottom line that they were looking for, and that was within the bottom line. But we're not sure about what the other.
If this is the bottom line deal or not.
Right.
and I had one other question, that's for you, Mr. McDuffie, on when you figure the county real property out of Cougar, penalties are not on this sheet at all. This
No.
sheet that'd just be something
Right.
we get whatever we
penalties,
get.
right.
Now with the law change on both projects, we just
Right.
get whatever we get.
Right.
Get 1 year.
Be happy. Okay.
Have a motion table on?
I've got a motion table, we got a second. Is there any further discussion? No discussion on the table. All those in favor, let me know by the uplifted hand. All right, unanimous.